You knew Stu better than I did, Stan. I worked with him on a little bit, and he's legendary. I'll be honest, I was totally intimidated working next to him because
Right.
it was like he had a lot of personality, man.
Yeah, he really did. He really did. He changed what it meant to be a sports center anchor, and and I say changed it, but he was there so early. He was there in the early formative stages of sports center, but he still was a change agent because he brought so much of what was happening outside of sports in the general culture, entertainment, music, movies, whatever. He brought that with him into his sportscast. And I was reading a story that Trey Wingo did an interview where he was talking about him, and he said that ESPN's management wasn't exactly supportive of Stewart at first because they're like, "Hey, man, we don't understand what you're talking about here, and we're worried that the audience doesn't understand what you're talking about here," you know. But they weren't tapped into what was happening in American culture during that time. I think I'm in the documentary. I did an interview for it, and I hope they use what I had to say. But I'll say it here just in case I'm not in it, in case I wind up on the cutting room floor. You got to think back to when he got there and what was going on during that time in the larger culture. Okay, so during that time, we're talking about mid '90s. Okay, you had In Living Color, which was like one of the top TV shows that had a black urban uh, uh, influence, right? You had Martin Lawrence, very popular TV show during that time. You had music groups like Boys to Men, New Edition. You had artists like Mariah Carey and Bobby Brown, and there was so much crossover where things that were black or urban, as it's called in radio, became mass appeal things, whether it was music or movies or whatever. And so Stewart brought a lot of the cultural zeitgeist that was going on outside of sports into sports. And people who watched In Living Color, who watched Martin Lawrence, who listened to urban radio, they got it because they're like, hey, oh yeah, that's the line from Martin. Shanae, Ray Ray, and all of them. You know what I mean? That's the line from Martin. Or some of the other things that he said. Some of it was just talking slick. Cool as the other side of the pillow. That kind of thing. It wasn't necessarily a reference from somewhere else. It was just kind of uh, in that same genre. You're talking slick. On the air. And so I think when he did that, it sparked the creativity in a lot of other people to say, hey, I'm not going to try to do what Stuart Scott's doing. I'm going to do that same thing, but I'm going to do it my way. Like when you would reference a rock band, or you would reference a movie line, The Dude, or something like that. I mean, like there is a group of people who love that movie, who are watching a highlight. They hear you reference it, and they're like, "Hey, man, I like that dude." You know what I mean? That dude is speaking to where I am and bringing it into sports. And Stewart did that with urban or black culture at a time when it was really, really hot. And that was a part of his success. But what he also did, and this is what Trey pointed out, Trey said, okay, cool. If you are questioning my references that have nothing to do with sports, well, I'm going to buttress that with more information and more stats and more context within that same highlight so that you can't say I'm all substance, I'm all style and no substance. I'm going to give you so much substance that you're going to have to let me do the style too because you want the substance. And that's what he did. I mean, he crammed a lot of information into highlights in addition to cool as the other side of the pillow. So I think that's his lasting legacy, that he not only did it himself, but I think he sparked a lot of creativity in other people who came along later, who said, hey, man, that guy's there doing something a little bit different with this, as opposed to just a straight on rote approach. And so I'm going to do that too, but I'm going to do it my way. And I think it made ESPN better, made SportsCenter better, and it made ESPN better.
Well, and I think it also made all of us better because he set a bar on hey, Kenny Mayne, they're the real creative guys. Like those are the two guys that I really think of as super creative. And it was always like,
And you,
I mean,
and
the few
you.
uh like when I would work next to Stuart or next to Kenny, I felt like, okay, man, I got the tie's got to be cinched a little tighter. This is gonna be a fun ride because these, and you got to be on the edge of my seat. I got to be ready to, if they throw something at me, I got to be ready to get it. And I want to be sitting in the front seat with them, not in the
Right.
back seat, letting them drive. They're going to drive. I want to be sitting shotgun, not in the back.
Absolutely. And he we had a relationship outside of ESPN because we're in the same fraternity, both Alpha Phi Alpha men. And so I knew Stuart before I got to ESPN, and he helped smooth the transition when I got there. And he's a competitive guy. Neil, I may have told you the story before, but this is my favorite outside of ESPN Stuart Scott story. So we're playing golf at East Lake in Atlanta. Okay, and um, the same guy's caddying for both of us. And so we get to Stuart wants to compete. Okay, so we're tied after the front nine, and so we're on the back nine. I don't remember exactly what hole it was, but I hit my drive and I'm over in the right rough, and Stuart hits his drive and he's over in the left rough. So he's away. So the caddy goes over to him first. And I'm looking at my lie in this rough, and this rough is thick and it's nasty. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I can get this ball to the green from this rough. So Stewart hits his shot and puts his ball on the green, and I'm like, man, what an amazing shot from that rough. So I'm like, okay, the pressure's on me now, because it's match play, and I got to try to at least salvage a half on this hole. So the caddy comes over to me, pulls a wedge out of my bag, and he starts fluffing my ball up in the rough. And I'm like, hey, man, what are you doing, man? I'll play it as it lies. And he said, okay, well, you're going to lose because he's doing it. So I said, hey, well, put mine on a tee. If that's what we're doing, put mine on a tee so I can get it up on the green.
There you go.
But yeah, no, really competitive guy, and you know, a lot of fun to be around. Because he was Stuart Scott, and he knew he was Stuart Scott, and he knew
Yeah.
people were always watching him and wanted to see Stuart Scott when they saw him, and so he was never hesitant to give him a little Stuart Scott when he saw people out in public, and I think all of that will come out in the documentary that he was on almost all the time.
He was the dude, and the dude abides.